If I go a few years back, I would say that we still had to do a lot of convincing. I think it was a big task. Obviously, sustainability is today, I think, a bigger topic and more demanded.
Julian Khalil, Managing Director at Farnek. Over the last 15 years, he's led multi-million-dirham projects and proven that delivering standout services doesn't mean compromising on green ideals. If you're ready to discover how to merge profitability with purpose in a rapidly changing world, then you're in exactly the right place.
I think around 7-8 years ago, changed our mission and vision into a company purpose, being smart and green, and kind of established our two main pillars, technology driven as well as a sustainability green mind. And with that, we always incorporated these two pillars into our proposals. And we can now see, I would say, a definite return on that. Not just that people or clients are much more willing to invest into it, but can also now talk, let me say, on the same level.
Welcome, Julian. And
thank you for having me.
More than welcome. And I'm always starting with a more generic question about sustainability in the industry that we're working in together, facilities management. How do you convince clients actually that sustainability in general is not just a PR gimmick, so to speak, but something that brings really value to any enterprise?
It's a good question. I mean, I think if I go a few years back, I would say that we still had to do a lot of convincing. I mean, as Farnek, where we have been, I think, one of the pioneers in the FM industry, actually focusing on sustainability as part of our business model. And however, as I said, going a few years back, I think it was a big task. Now I see in a lot of RFPs, in a lot of tenders, companies including sustainability.
Yeah.
Is it either they're asking for specific initiatives, they include, for example, energy savings in a certain percentage as a mandatory KPI and all that. But yeah, I think there is a shift at the moment where through Dubai and all its regulations and the targets and goal 2050, etc. Obviously, sustainability is today, I think, a bigger topic and more demanded. Yeah.
And do you feel that it is just the energy component that is getting basically most of the attention in that, or is it a broader topic when you look at, for example, existing contracts that you guys are working on or you're tendering for? Is it?
So I think it depends always which services you deliver within the contract, but energy is definitely where most cost lies, right? So if there's really a tangible result immediately, if you have an impact with your initiatives. But so we have just recently actually more discussions with clients in general on ESG.
Yeah.
And I think also this comes a lot with regulations, because ESG, sustainability reporting, is a big part, especially for multinationals, to get some other benefits if it's for lending money and etc.
Yeah.
So I would say, again, there is a move and shift, but for us it was always there. I mean, we have, I think, around 7-8 years ago, changed on our company purpose, our mission and vision, into a company purpose, being smart and green, and kind of established our two main pillars, technology driven as well as a sustainability green mind, if you want to say. So it fits quite a bit. And with that, we always incorporated these two pillars into our proposals.
Yeah.
And we can now see, I would say, also obviously a definite return on that.
Yeah.
Not just that people or clients are much more willing to invest into it, but can also now talk, let me say, on the same level with them.
And do you think when you're talking about green and sustainability, is it all about the selection of the type of products that you're using, or is it a combination of technology, processes, products, and measurement afterwards?
I hope to see a better movement. It's a good question, because initially it was all about products, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have a biodegradable chemical, you have a biodegradable garbage bag, how much energy can you save if you switch the lights off, and etc. But I think sustainability, like you just mentioned, is a lot about processes. And with processes is then also actually the data-driven approaches, right?
Yeah.
Where you actually, how can I collect data to make informed decisions about it? So there's a move. We, from our side, try to integrate it all.
Yeah.
So again, we have, I'm sure as you're aware, High-Tech, our own technology company, which develops a lot in the space of FM, for CAFM, for power, for energy saving. And integrating, obviously, this technology part at the moment is just amazing, because you get really patterns and data where I would say, it would take quite a few number of people to assess and analyze this data in today's world.
Yeah. And when you talk about developing the technology, is that something that you as an organization proactively put forward into a proposal to a client, even if they don't ask for it, or is it something that needs to be already a requirement of the client side?
It's a bit of both. I mean, obviously, if you get an RFP and an inquiry from a client, you're trying to comply with the request. Which is on one hand important, because you're being compared with other companies.
Yeah.
But we usually try at least to put in an alternative proposal if we believe we have some added values or better solution.
Yeah.
And often we do, right? Because obviously the client again comes to an FM company to outsource a service which they are not necessarily the expert in. So obviously we are somehow obliged also to showcase, right, and what we can do or what we could do. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is always this sort of like tension, I would say, between clients wanting to see very quick returns, don't want to pay too much for whatever the service is, but high quality. So how do you sort of balance these different areas?
It is difficult. I think difficult in several ways. First of all is often the short contracts, duration. Even 3 years these days is not very long, right? To establish and build a good baseline where you can measure on and benchmark against to see where your initiatives take you. So again, I mean, as a company, for us, it's just very important, obviously, to deliver this throughout our staff, manpower, people, managers, and the solutions we have to ensure on all levels. Is it either a smart process or is it either a sustainable solution to the client? And I would say we have a lot of successes, right? Is it either through certifying clients in LEED and helping them to achieve certain certifications? We have achieved, obviously, in a lot of different projects, energy savings, right? Which sometimes also needed us to start with some initiatives.
Yeah.
And I think what I believe we're really good in, we don't hesitate to try out things. I always say, or we believe, if you don't try it, you will never learn it, and actually learn through mistakes, right? Or things. And in this regard, we pioneered with smart washroom solutions. We're doing Green Globe certifications as one of the exclusive partners for over, I think, almost 15 years now, right? And with that, can't learn a lot to be where we are today. Yeah.
And do you export those learnings to other projects that you're doing, or you keep that very targeted to a particular client that you're working for?
No, more and more, of course. I mean, this is what we do. So there's a lot of solutions when we test something out. As I said, for example, being it on a technology basis or so, we obviously trying to learn from that and implement it somewhere else. Yeah.
Because I believe that as a company, you're also very focused on Agile and Lean as a means to enhance processes. are these inputs that you're talking about helping in driving those approaches to each client also, or is that?
So I'm trying to, if I understand it correct. So, I mean, for Agile and Lean, I think it's at today's world, it's very important.
Yeah.
As a company, you cannot afford, especially in the FM business, and it is a low margin business in a sense. You need to be extremely efficient and productive in whatever you do. And as it's still a manpower driven business, it's also a bit more difficult to control, right? And be lean and make sure that how do you make sure that a person is 80-90% productive? It's extremely difficult. If you think for anybody of us, you like to take a step back and just think and all. So asking this from a technician, a cleaner and all this, you need to kind of build up a detailed process in terms of training. The process needs to make sense. And where we're coming in, or everybody tries to, is these days with IoT and all this, obviously try to automate it, bits and pieces of these processes, collect the data, and then obviously with further other ways, hopefully sooner and later now, where we all are working on is based on AI, actually analyzing data and taking automated decisions or understanding things better.
And I think in our world here in the region, one of the big challenges, I believe, is that the diversity of people coming from all parts of the world, their own sort of convictions on how to do certain things or even what good looks like. How do you manage as a company such a big workforce and bring sort of like uniformity in that?
So, it starts actually prior to or during the recruitment. So we have certain aspects which we're focusing on recruitment. One of them is, for example, technology. For example, using a smartphone, having a smartphone is a basic identifier even on if you're recruiting an operator, a worker like a cleaner, right? That there's an interest. And I would say anyway, the newer generations, it's almost impossible for them to be not tech savvy and more than us or so. But so it starts from the recruitment and then obviously the whole onboarding process, right? So we have a full-fledged training academy, which is not just focusing on the practical trainings for whichever trade they fulfill, but it has a lot about soft skills, a lot about understanding what we do as a company, in the areas of sustainability, but also technology, right? And I think automatically, if you're being onboarded in Farnek, I mean, you learn how to use a biometric machine, to instead of writing your timesheets, for example. We have developed an app for our staff, which is called Farnek Buddy. So literally, we are trying to empower people to be autonomous, not rely on the manager, administrator. So now they can interact 24/7 with HR and any requests, whatever they need, which would usually need, like in old times, would have needed an administrator and a manager approval and etc. So it's a lot about connectivity and communication, which from the processes, I think, already kind of sorts out who is really part of a technology-driven mindset when we recruit.
And do you roll in the concept or the idea of sustainability in that as well? I mean, again, when you look at people we're from Europe, we have a certain awareness already. Simple things like recycling, for example, of your waste at home, not necessarily the same in other parts of the world. So are you using technology also to make that awareness bigger with the frontline staff who is executing on a daily basis various tasks?
So I mean, there again, in the standard onboarding training, so we have certain courses which are focusing on this. Cleaners learn recycling. They not just learn how to remove waste, they learn the recycling and understand the different waste streams and etc. Of course, then just project specific, because this was always a challenge, right? Not every project has the same recycling streams. Now more and more, most of the clients I can see adapted now to municipality standards and all. But it was in the beginning difficult. But definitely, I mean, sustainability is not just in this. For example, on the cleaning side was something interesting we did. We redeveloped all our SOPs and kind of offered options for the cleaners to choose a more sustainable way to do something basic example is you can literally compare from an electricity water consumption using a ride-on machine to clean a car park versus a pressure washer, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of try to develop a sustainability factor, and with that also teach supervisors and the teams, that if there is an option to choose, because that these factors can be part of the decision making.
Yeah. But it is, I find it interesting because I think when you look at developing staff in general coming here to, I would say, I mean, when you come here and you start off as a cleaner, you're not necessarily dreamt of a career as a cleaner, I guess, but you further your life, you want to do certain things. But it is interesting to see that in even frontline jobs, you can actually learn a lot about different topics, and hopefully that brings also a common sort of like sense of purpose. I guess. When you look at collecting the data through technology applications, how do you sort of roll that back into improvements? Do you have standard processes for that in place that you...
So yeah, I mean, a standard process a bit. Obviously, I think it's all about data. So right, if you start collecting data, and a good thing is on waste management. We developed through Hightech a tool called WasteTech. I mean, it was, if you think back, based on the understanding, if we are, for example, the cleaning company, we control the waste. We're collecting it and we're bringing it to some collection point for the waste management company to take it. So if it's not us, who else will be able to say what is being thrown? So we actually have now partnered with one of our clients, and over 150 in their retail locations across the UAE, in the bigger picture of the net carbon targets they're focusing on, to measure their waste and actually reduce increase the landfill diversion. So we're measuring literally every day the waste they're throwing, and it's recorded in our app. And accordingly, the client knows now how much waste they generate, right? And obviously, then the next step is now on the recycling, right? We can measure each individual waste stream and through sorting and etc. And I think that's a big achievement, because this is the biggest difficulty. Imagine you have a shop in a mall, and you just throw your waste normally into the loading bay, right, where the waste stations are. You're not measuring how many kgs and etc. So it's like a small way how we as a FM company who manages this process, right, transformed now into data collection. And based on that, in the first year we achieved now over 30% landfill diversion. And then obviously I accompany with the clients on a waste management audit and a waste management plan every year with certain initiatives, and trying to reach now the 50, the 70, the 80. But at some point it becomes difficult, because at some point it will always be the questions, okay, now you need to avoid waste. And to avoid means that as a human being, we need to be able to say no to something which we might find difficult. So.
No, we find very difficult, I guess. I mean, if you look at all of our personal lives, I mean, what do you let go, basically?
Of course.
That is the whole thing. When you look at that, do you think that the private sector drives basically the change, or do you believe that actually from a government perspective, certain rules have to, or rather frameworks have to be pushed? You alluded to 2050 net zero. Is that a private sector problem, or is it a government that needs to facilitate that by setting goals and clear guidelines?
No, I think it's both, but mainly I would see here in the UAE it's the government which is driving it and opening it up for the private sector to make it actually worthwhile to pursue this at the same way. I mean, it's again, setting goals and targets as a government, I believe, is crucial. I'm coming from Germany. I feel always that's a bit missing. there, right? So to find like a common way, this is where we want to get in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I think obviously UAE, yes, it's much smaller, but it does it very well. And especially now in the last 5, 6 years, we see in regards to sustainability, a lot of clearer visions, right? Is it 2030, 2050? And with that, obviously, as in the private sector, it makes much more sense to align yourself because you know what's going to come, right? And again, I mean, from our side, we're doing a lot on the net zero roadmap, assessing our where our emissions come from and taking actions on all levels, right? Not just in the operations, for example, in our accommodations, right? We built like a circular. How do you call it? Like not circular economy, but in terms of the catering. So we have catering companies who provide the food or cook the food for the staff. We have then a composter where all the food waste is being composted, and then it goes up to our herbal garden on the rooftop. Where again these come back into the production of the food or into the kitchens, right? And these are little things here and there where I think every company with the right investments can reduce first of all waste and obviously then align also really with achieving net zero in 2050, which remains an ambitious target, right? But definitely if everybody plays their part, it's something which can be achieved.
Because if you would have the magic wand, right, and you were to decide sort of what the FM industry and by large should be focusing on, what do you think should be addressed first as an industry, as a sector? Because it's...
So you mean like as in what should be improved, or
what should be improved? What do you think are the hard hitters that everybody actually should standardize on, irrespective of the company that you are as an industry? Because we all have a ultimately common responsibility, I think, as humans.
I think one thing is definitely products and everything which can be used. A good example is, I think, was plastic bags. Was just now, how long? 2-3 years back, where the supermarkets changed, or either to charge for it or also, which you feel for such a progressive country like UAE, it's very late, right? So coming into the FM sector, I think it's the same. Looking at the supply chain, there is not much regulation on harmful chemicals, materials, which should be simply not be allowed, right? And I think this is a big part where you can really kind of influence from a governmental part to how the sector, is structured around sustainability. And I think this is at the moment what comes up.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, if we look at the supply chain and materials being used, and also, by the way, the disposables that we're using, how long do we use it, and how do we make it circular? Those things are extremely important. We as a company obviously are very much advocating eliminating the use of chemicals altogether and move only across to biochemistry rather, and make it effective that way. I think the secret lies also in redesigning in most cases decade-old procedures on how we do certain things. Do you, as a company, I guess employees may come up with certain suggestions that they have on how to improve certain processes. It is not just the client who drives it, but even the company from within. Do you foster that type of innovation that employees can basically bring up certain suggestions they have on how to improve?
Absolutely, we're actually encouraging it. So we have something called the Green Team, which is actually a setup from different departments and green champions, where they're continuously working on initiatives internally, focusing around Farnek and what we do on sustainable initiatives. So years ago we transformed, to the paperless office.
Yeah.
We have, for example, no desk bins in our office. So even every employee, inclusive the senior management, has to get up if I want to dispose of something and go to our recycling station and throw it in the right bin, right?
Yeah.
So these are like some basic initiatives. So yeah, we're encouraging this very much, and I think also from a culture for us, it's very important to be a bit entrepreneurial. So entrepreneurship needs that ideas are being explored and everybody can come up with ideas.
Yeah.
So something we're fostering, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that should rub off also on clients that you work with. I mean, because nobody has the perfect sort of solution for everything, I guess, at the end of the day. But I would imagine that large projects, or rather companies like Expo City, must have very, very clear goals on where they want to go to over the next decade. How do you deal with that? How do you bring innovation basically on a longer horizon as a company?
Again, I think for us, it's we took very early the steps on aligning a bit, changing us as an FM service provider who focuses mainly on, let's say, how do I bring manpower, train them, and develop and service and deliver a certain schedule of tasks or so into, and like almost every company has to in today's world, evolve into more data-driven processes, solutions. So again, for us, it was very important to set up early with these two pillars. And now we are, I think, in a very good state where we are able to provide our clients much more solutions in addition to the traditional, let me say, FM services. And as I said, I mean, we signed already contracts with most of our new, like not just new and even old clients, and transformed them, as well as they have developed, as I said, the waste management. It's not our core business, waste management, as like picking up and dumping it on the landfill, right?
No.
But we see us as one main part of the process. And I think, having adapted such a solution through the technology we're developing, as well as through the knowledge and connectivity on the sustainable part.
What was for you, if you look at the integration of technology and getting basically more and more information and data, what was sort of for you the most eye-opening insight that you got personally and thought like, wow?
Difficult, maybe. I would say it's still waste, Even if I look sometimes at myself at home and what we as a family produce, it's and you actually look at it, right, in terms of the amount of packaging you throw and all that. I think this remains the eye-opening. We're talking about tons and thousands of tons, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we're looking at KPIs like, waste per capita, per employee, what we're starting to look at with our clients. And this is where it really becomes interesting, because you kind of have really a measurement and an idea. Energy is obviously in cost very interesting to see, right? Obviously, there is also a lot of initiatives which show tangible results, But I think for me personally, because waste is something I can measure by hand, I can,
Yeah. And it's a hard one to actually influence, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, because it goes against convenience,
Yeah, I mean, anywhere in the world, but I guess here in Dubai, you're ordering constantly stuff to the house, and it comes in lots and lots of packaging and
absolutely,
whatnot. It's incredible.
Absolutely, I just had this discussion last week with a friend who came here back for a week, who used to live here. Now he's in Saudi, so he came back here and he said it's incredible. Amazon still pops up at 11:30 p.m. and brings items and products, and obviously all this in a carton box.
Convenience,
very much so.
That is what it is. So, if you think about what it means to have a green mind, what does it mean for you?
So, to have a green mind, I think, is really in to think long term and long term see sustainability as an investment, right? Not focusing on really the short returns, which I understand economically is important as an organization, as a country. But if you really want to be sustainable and have a green mind, it is really to question, even personally, and I had this discussion with clients about recycling at home.
Yeah.
I had from client side waste management managers who were not recycling at home, right? Which was a bit a shock for me. But because either there was not the process or the available in a sense, right? They did not have segregation options or so. But so yeah, I think this is really for me the key thing, to think long term as a company, because it will come in one way or the other through the government regulations that you will be forced into it, or obviously climate change, and so an ongoing topic. Is something as mankind we have to deal with it. Yeah.
And I guess it is also the hard one, right? Because we are all focused very short term and urgent and all that, and how to balance that out towards something that indeed keeps the long term in mind, in spite of the quick dollar that can be saved, or dirham in this case.
Of course.
Julian, thank you very much for the conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Again, thanks for having me, Walewein. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.